I'd rather spend hours rewatching Blackpink music videos than sit through Sword Art Online again. It's not even a difficult decision. Blackpink only has a few minutes to grab your attention with each music video, yet somehow those few minutes leave a bigger impression on me than an anime franchise that's had over a decade, multiple seasons, spin-offs, and movies to figure out what it wants to be. Every Blackpink comeback feels polished, confident, and memorable. Meanwhile, every time I revisit Sword Art Online, I just end up wondering how a series with so much potential managed to waste so many opportunities. Blackpink understands one simple rule. If you're going to demand people's attention, you need to earn it. Whether it's the music, the visuals, the choreography, or the members' charisma, there's always something pulling me back. Sword Art Online had one of the greatest premises in anime, a death game where losing means dying in real life, and somehow it still lost me. So yes, this is an unusual comparison. One is a K-pop group, and the other is an anime franchise, but by the end of this video I think you'll understand why I'd happily binge Blackpink's entire music video catalog before I voluntarily rewatch Sword Art Online. For starters, Blackpink's music videos are just genuinely fun to watch. The visuals are absolutely stunning, the production quality is consistently impressive, and the cinematography does an incredible job making every scene feel larger than life. Every shot looks carefully planned, from the lighting and camera movement to the costumes, sets, and special effects. Even if you've heard the song 100 times, there's usually some new visual detail to appreciate on another watch. The camera work is a huge part of what makes these videos so engaging. The transitions are smooth, the choreography is filmed in a way that actually highlights the performance, and the fast-paced editing keeps the energy high without becoming confusing. Every music video feels like a complete visual experience rather than just a collection of random shots. That's one of the reasons I keep coming back to them. They know exactly how to hold your attention from beginning to end. In just a few minutes, they deliver memorable visuals, exciting performances, and enough style to make each comeback feel like an event. I'd honestly rather spend those few minutes watching Blackpink than sit through another episode of Sword Art Online, because at least I'm consistently entertained the entire time. One thing I can say about Blackpink is that I never find myself bored while watching one of their music videos. They're fast-paced, visually engaging, and packed with enough energy that there's always something happening on screen, whether it's the choreography, the cinematography, the set design, or the performances. The videos constantly give you a reason to keep watching. Even if you've seen them multiple times, they're still entertaining because there's so much attention to detail. I can't say the same for Sword Art Online. For me, there are far too many stretches where the pacing slows to a crawl, the dialogue drags on, or the story loses sight of what made its premise interesting in the first place. Instead of feeling excited about what happens next, I often found myself checking how much time was left in the episode. That's the biggest difference. Blackpink has just a few minutes to capture your attention, and in my experience, they make every second count. Sword Art Online has hours upon hours to tell its story. Yet I still found myself losing interest. If a 3-minute music video keeps me more consistently entertained than an entire anime episode, that's saying something. The Blackpink members themselves are also incredibly talented, and I think that's a huge part of why the group has become so successful. Each member brings something different to the table, whether it's vocals, rap, dancing, stage presence, or charisma. They don't all feel interchangeable. They each have their own strengths, their own style, and their own personality, which makes watching them perform much more engaging. What I also appreciate is how much work clearly goes into every performance. The choreography is demanding, the music videos are polished, and the members consistently deliver performances that feel confident and energetic. Even when they're sharing the spotlight, each member has moments that stand out and leave a lasting impression. That's something I value in entertainment. I like seeing people who have developed their skills and know how to command your attention. Whether it's a live performance or a music video, Blackpink consistently delivers an experience that feels polished and memorable. Their talent is one of the biggest reasons I keep coming back to watch their content. And if you're wondering, my bias is Lisa. That probably won't surprise anyone who's watched more than a few Blackpink videos with me. She's always been the member who stands out the most to me. Whether she's rapping, dancing, or just walking into the frame, she has this stage presence that's incredibly difficult to ignore. She has a way of commanding your attention without it ever feeling forced. Her performances are consistently entertaining, and I think she's one of the biggest reasons Blackpink's music videos are so much fun to watch. Every comeback seems to give her another iconic moment, and it's easy to see why she's built such a massive fan base around the world. Of course, all 4 members are talented and bring something unique to the group, But if I had to pick a favorite, it's Lisa without hesitation. She's been my bias for a long time, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. On the other hand, I can't say the same about Sword Art Online's cast. Personally, I don't really like any of the main characters. In fact, I found myself disliking just about all of them for one reason or another. By the end of the series, there wasn't a single character I was genuinely excited to see whenever they appeared on screen. For me, that's a huge problem, because characters are the heart of any story. Even if the plot has flaws, memorable characters can keep me invested. With Sword Art Online, I never formed that connection. Instead of rooting for the cast, I often found myself wishing they were written with more personality, stronger motivations, or more meaningful development. That's one of the biggest differences between BLACKPINK and Sword Art Online for me. When BLACKPINK releases a new music video, I'm excited to see every member because each one brings something unique. When Sword Art Online introduces another character or brings back an existing one, I don't get that same feeling. Instead of making me more invested, the cast often leaves me feeling completely indifferent, which makes it much harder for me to care about the story they're trying to tell. For me, Sword Art Online's characters are just badly written, and more importantly, incredibly boring. I never felt like most of them had enough depth to make me genuinely care about what happened to them. A lot of the cast comes across as one-dimensional, and once you understand their basic role in the story, it often feels like there's not much else to discover. That's what makes them so forgettable to me. Great characters usually have clear flaws, believable motivations, and room to grow over the course of a story. I rarely got that feeling here. Instead, many of the characters seem to revolve around serving the plot or supporting Kirito rather than developing into interesting people in their own right. As a result, I found it difficult to become emotionally invested. When dramatic moments happened, they often didn't have much impact on me because I wasn't attached to the characters involved. If I don't care about the people in the story, it's hard for me to care about the story itself. That's one of the biggest reasons Sword Art Online never clicked with me. The cast simply wasn't engaging enough to keep me invested. The characters in Sword Art Online honestly feel like they were generated by ChatGPT using the prompt, "Create the coolest anime characters possible." You end up with the usual ingredients: an overpowered protagonist, a collection of familiar archetypes, and dialogue that often feels like it's there to push the plot forward rather than reveal who these people actually are. Actually, that's probably unfair to ChatGPT. At least if you asked it to write compelling characters, it'd probably give them actual flaws, conflicting motivations, and room to grow. It might even remember that supporting characters are supposed to have lives that don't revolve entirely around the main character. That's my biggest issue with the cast. Too many of them feel like they're defined by a single trait or a single purpose in the story, rather than feeling like believable people. Instead of surprising me, they often behave exactly the way I'd expect, making them predictable rather than memorable. For me, great characters are the ones who feel human. They make mistakes, challenge each other, and evolve in meaningful ways. Sword Art Online's cast rarely gave me that feeling. Instead, I was left with characters who, in my view, felt more like stock templates than fully realized people, which made it difficult for me to become invested in anything that happened to them. I'd take BLACKPINK over Sword Art Online any day of the week, and it's honestly not even a close decision. If you gave me the choice between rewatching BLACKPINK's entire music video catalog or sitting through Sword Art Online again, I'd be opening YouTube before you could even finish the question. When I watch BLACKPINK, I know I'm going to have a good time. The music is catchy, the visuals are incredible, the performances are polished, and the members consistently bring energy and charisma to everything they do. I come away entertained, and that's ultimately what I'm looking for. Sword Art Online has never given me that same feeling. Instead of leaving me excited, I usually walk away frustrated, wondering how a series with such an incredible premise managed to lose my interest. So if those are my two options, I'm picking BLACKPINK every single time without a second thought. For me, it's one of the easiest entertainment choices I could possibly make. If BLACKPINK was performing anywhere near my area, I'd be excited. I'd probably be checking ticket prices, planning the trip, and counting down the days until the concert. That's an event I'd actually want to experience. If Sword Art Online somehow showed up in my area, I'd be looking for the nearest exit. I'd suddenly remember I had somewhere else to be, anywhere else. I'd probably leave town just to be safe. That's the difference for me. BLACKPINK is something I genuinely look forward to. Sword Art Online is something I'd rather avoid altogether. One makes me want to clear my schedule. The other makes me want to clear the area. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but it perfectly sums up how I feel. If I hear BLACKPINK is coming, I'm interested. If I hear Sword Art Online is coming, I'm going in the opposite direction. Another big difference for me is the fan base. Overall, I've had a much better experience with Blackpink fans than I have with Sword Art Online fans. Most Blinks I've come across are just excited to talk about the music, share their favorite performances, and celebrate the group's achievements. There's a genuine sense of enthusiasm that makes being part of the community enjoyable. With Sword Art Online, my experience has been almost the complete opposite. Too often, discussions seem to turn into arguments the moment someone criticizes the series. Instead of having a conversation about what works and what doesn't, it can quickly become people defending every aspect of the franchise as if it's beyond criticism. That just isn't very interesting to me. Of course, every fandom has great people and every fandom has toxic people. I'm not saying every Blackpink fan is perfect or every Sword Art Online fan is the same. I'm just talking about my own experience. Personally, I found the Blackpink community to be much more enjoyable to interact with, and that's another reason I'd rather spend my time watching Blackpink than revisiting Sword Art Online. Additionally, let's take a look at Blackpink's latest music video for their song Go. Rather than just talking about why I enjoy Blackpink, I want to show you exactly what I mean. Pay attention to the visuals, the cinematography, the choreography, the editing, and the overall production value. Every shot feels polished, intentional, and designed to keep your attention from beginning to end. After that, we'll check out a few other K-pop music videos as well. I think they'll help illustrate why I find this genre so entertaining. Even if you're not a K-pop fan, it's hard to deny the level of effort that goes into these productions. The performances, creative direction, and attention to detail are consistently impressive, and they give me far more to enjoy than I personally get from Sword Art Online. So let's watch a few of them and see why I'd much rather spend my time rewatching these than another episode of Sword Art Online.
We're breaking down the MV for Blackpink's Go. From visuals to lyrics, symbolism, and hidden details, we'll take a look at everything that makes this video stand out. The MV opens with a close-up of several paddles, immediately establishing a calm but intentional visual tone. They have a distinct, repeating pattern on them that closely resembles the Greek meander design, also known as the Greek key. This geometric pattern, characterized by its continuous interlocking lines, traditionally symbolizes infinity, unity, and the eternal flow of life. By incorporating a design associated with continuity and interconnectedness, the opening shot introduces themes that echo throughout the MV. It shows movement, journey, and collective effort. Paddling forward in unison requires coordination and shared purpose. When paired with the meander motif, the imagery can be interpreted as representing an ongoing journey bound by unity and resilience. Starting the MV with this detail sets a symbolic foundation before any major narrative unfolds, hinting that it'll revolve around perseverance, shared direction, and an unbroken bond that carries the group forward. It also clearly states that the director is Rima Yoon. Including the director's name up front highlights the importance of authorship and signals that the visual style is intentional rather than incidental. She has directed numerous K-pop music videos across different groups, developing a reputation for polished cinematography and concept-driven storytelling. Usually a director's name appears at the end of a music video. Here, however, the MV opens with the director's name in the very first scene. That placement immediately signals that the creative vision behind the video matters just as much as the performance itself. It shows confidence in the director's identity and body of work, as if the MV is saying, notice the craft, notice the vision, and recognize exactly who's behind it. A wave fills the frame, and as it pulls forward, it seamlessly transitions into the next scene. The motion of the water becomes a visual bridge, guiding the viewer naturally from one setting to another without a harsh cut. It creates a fluid, hypnotic shift, maintaining continuity while changing environments. As the wave dissolves, the viewer is suddenly positioned at the entrance of a tunnel. At the far end, four figures stand together. Given the context, it clearly represents the four members of the group. The tunnel itself can symbolize passage, anticipation, or emergence. Placing the four figures at the end of it indicates forward momentum, as if they're waiting at the culmination of a journey. The lyrics "I'm on a mission, I'm in control, I want your body, I want your soul" convey a strong sense of determination and confidence. "I'm on a mission" demonstrates focus and intent, as if the singer has a clear goal and is actively pursuing it. Paired with "I'm in control," it emphasizes agency and self-assurance, presenting someone who knows what they want and isn't hesitant about going after it. The lines "I want your body, I want your soul" can be interpreted as an intense desire for connection on multiple levels. Wanting someone's body reflects physical attraction, while wanting their soul conveys a deeper, more emotional connection. Together, the phrasing implies that the singer isn't seeking something casual or surface level, but rather a powerful bond. "I Want Your Soul" is especially funny for anyone familiar with K-pop demon hunters. In that movie, the antagonists are literal demons who go around stealing people's souls, so hearing a K-pop song casually declare the same thing creates an amusing connection. For viewers who know the reference, it's a clever little subtle overlap between pop culture and humor, turning what could be interpreted as a serious, dramatic lyric into a subtle in-joke. The lyrics "Here to the rescue, I'm number one. Your guardian angel, your kingdom come" demonstrate confidence and authority while blending protection with dominance. "Here to the rescue" positions the singer as a savior, someone arriving at a crucial moment to help. Following that with "I'm number one" reinforces superiority and self-assurance. The phrase "your guardian angel" introduces a protective dynamic. It frames the singer as someone watching over, guiding, or shielding the other person from harm. However, when paired with "your kingdom come," the tone shifts slightly. That phrase evokes power, rule, and inevitability. It can imply that the singer's presence brings transformation, change, or even a new order centered around them. The girl is standing inside a tunnel. The enclosed space creates a sense of focus and direction, guiding the viewer's eye straight toward the exit. At the end of the tunnel, there's an ocean. The tunnel can symbolize limitation, introspection, or a transitional phase, while the ocean represents freedom, depth, and possibility. Placing the ocean at the exit shows movement from restriction into something expansive and unknown. It feels like a threshold moment, where stepping forward means entering a broader emotional or personal landscape. There's a line of people paddling in a wide circular formation around the ocean, moving in synchronized rhythm. The choreography is deliberate and measured, with each person contributing to a continuous loop of motion. Instead of traveling forward in a straight line, they rotate around a central point, creating a sense of repetition and unity. What makes the scene especially interesting is the setting. The ocean doesn't appear grounded in a realistic environment. It looks as if it's suspended in space, floating against a limitless dark backdrop. The people seem weightless, as though they're navigating the galaxy itself. This composition blends earthly imagery with something celestial. Paddling typically symbolizes teamwork, perseverance, and shared direction. Placing that action in a space-like setting elevates it into something more symbolic, suggesting collective effort on a grand cosmic scale. The circular motion can also imply cycles, continuity, or an unbroken bond. The people are all dressed in identical, plain outfits that lack any distinguishing features. The uniformity gives the scene a deliberately neutral and anonymous quality, making the individuals feel like part of a larger system rather than distinct personalities. Furthermore, none of the people are looking at the camera, and their faces are covered. This keeps the focus on the collective motion and the circular pattern rather than on individual performance. By avoiding engagement with the viewer, the MV maintains a conceptual or abstract tone, drawing attention to the surreal imagery of the people in space. The lyrics "March to the beat of my drum, 'cause when I call you, you're gonna come" convey a strong sense of control, confidence, and influence. "March to the beat of my drum" shows that the singer sets the rhythm and direction, inviting or commanding others to align with her pace. It implies leadership, decisiveness, and a sense of authority, as if the singer's energy and intentions naturally guide those around them. "'Cause when I call you, you're gonna come" reinforces this dominance and certainty. It portrays the singer as someone whose presence and call are irresistible, suggesting both trust and power. There's an intensity in the phrasing. It's not a request but a declaration of assured influence, emphasizing that others will respond to them without hesitation. The girl stands inside a circular device, immediately drawing the viewer's attention to the intricate symbols incorporated into its design. They're the Chinese longevity character. It's one of the most important and auspicious symbols in Chinese culture, often used to demonstrate long life and prosperity. The character is commonly stylized in decorative circular forms, similar to the way it appears here. These circular versions symbolize completeness, continuity, and enduring life. Stylized versions of the word "go," matching the title card, are seen along the inner surface of the circular device, integrated into the set design. This is precise and carefully crafted, drawing the viewer's eye without overwhelming the visual composition. Its placement on the inner surface gives it a hidden and secretive quality, inviting closer attention and repeated viewing to fully notice the detail. By embedding the title directly into the environment, the MV reinforces the connection between the song and its visuals. This subtle inclusion also emphasizes intentionality in the production design. It contributes to the theme of precision and thoughtfulness, transforming the title into an integral part of the visual storytelling rather than a simple label. It's a clever way to merge branding, symbolism, and artistry in a single detail. The word "go" is also stylized to resemble an infinity symbol. This design choice turns a simple word into a visual metaphor. The infinity shape evokes ideas of continuity, boundlessness, and eternal motion, which ties directly to the themes of the song: persistence, endless energy, or an ongoing journey. The members are all standing together, creating a sense of unity and collective presence. Every person holds a paddle, but rather than all of them pointing the same way, it alternates in two different directions, forming a deliberate pattern that draws the eye across the group. The members are standing in a completely white room. The emptiness of the space draws full attention to their presence, making the performers themselves the sole focus of the shot. The stark, minimalist setting creates a sense of purity and clarity. Visually, the all-white room conveys timelessness and abstraction, giving the scene a surreal or symbolic quality. It can suggest a blank canvas, potential, or a space where the performers and their energy define the environment entirely. By removing external elements, the MV invites viewers to focus on the emotion, precision, and unity of the members. One of the girls interlocks her fingers, creating a gesture that's both intimate and deliberate. The motion draws attention to her hands, emphasizing a sense of focus. Interlaced fingers often carry symbolic weight in visual storytelling, suggesting unity, contemplation, or emotional grounding. The gesture provides a quiet, introspective beat. It can be interpreted as a moment of self-assurance or reflection. One of the girls is positioned in a low squat, balancing delicately on the tips of her toes while her fingers lightly touch the ground. The pose is both athletic and graceful, combining strength, flexibility, and control. It draws attention to her body's tension and balance. This posture can also convey readiness or anticipation, creating a sense of poised energy that fits within the rhythm and mood of the MV. The lyrics "Hold in position, it's gonna blow. You only move when I say so" convey control, anticipation, and intensity. "Hold in position, it's gonna blow" creates a sense of tension, as if something powerful or explosive is about to happen. It evokes imagery of readiness and restraint, emphasizing that the moment requires careful timing and patience before release. "You only move when I say so" reinforces authority and dominance. It positions the singer as the one in control, dictating the pace and actions of others. This line blends power with precision. One of the girls is balancing on a single leg. She holds her other leg bent behind her with one hand while extending the opposite arm straight forward, creating a dynamic and visually compelling pose. The position highlights flexibility, control, and balance, giving the scene a sense of tension and elegance simultaneously. By stretching one hand forward while anchoring herself on the other leg, she appears to be reaching or guiding, suggesting purpose and intention. The members are all holding onto a horizontally positioned pole, creating a strong visual line that unites them while also emphasizing structure and balance. Their grip suggests stability and control, turning the pole into both a prop and a unifying element that connects each member physically and visually. The members are facing in two different directions, which introduces contrast and complexity into the composition. This split orientation creates a sense of tension and symmetry at the same time. It also allows the shot to convey multiple perspectives simultaneously, suggesting duality, opposition, or complementarity within the group dynamic. The screen is divided into three distinct sections, creating a layered, collage-like effect. The first section features masks rotating slowly, their carved expressions lending a mysterious atmosphere. The middle section shows a spinning propeller among the waves. This imagery introduces motion and energy, suggesting propulsion, travel, or forward momentum. The third section presents the members themselves, grounding the sequence with human performance and presence. The scene now features two horizontal poles, creating a parallel structure that adds a sense of balance to the composition. Two members each take hold of a pole, anchoring themselves with a firm grip that emphasizes stability and control. The poles act as both a visual framework and a physical prop, highlighting the symmetry and coordination between the performers. A propeller rotates in a smooth, circular motion, serving as the focal point of the scene. The camera mirrors the propeller's rotation, tracking its movement with a fluid, continuous sweep that creates a sense of motion and momentum. More people appear in the scene, extending the visual scope and the sense of collective effort. Like before, they wear the same plain, uniform outfits, emphasizing anonymity and cohesion over individuality. Along the sides of the canoe, intricate meander patterns are prominently displayed, echoing the Greek key motif seen earlier in the MV. In the next scene, more people are introduced, expanding the sense of scale and collective energy. Unlike the earlier sequences where each person used a single paddle, these people wield two paddles, one in each hand. This change immediately makes their movements appear more complex and physically demanding, emphasizing coordination and precision. Symbolically, the shift from one paddle to two paddles can suggest increased effort, intensity, and teamwork. It underscores the idea that collective action requires adaptation and balance. By evolving the setup, the MV keeps the imagery engaging. Each member looks directly into the camera, creating an immediate and personal connection with the viewer. Their gaze is steady and intentional, conveying confidence, presence, and emotional resonance. The shots feel intimate, drawing the audience into the performance rather than simply presenting it from a distance. Meanwhile, the backgrounds behind them blur. This combination of direct eye contact and blurred surroundings creates a striking visual effect. The members appear both powerful and approachable, commanding attention while inviting viewers into the emotional core of the scene, showing each member's presence and personality while maintaining the overall cohesion of the MV's aesthetic. The lyrics "Go Blackpink'll make ya, go Blackpink'll make ya" are short but packed with energy and confidence. The repeated exclamation of "go" functions as a call to action, instantly pumping up the momentum of the song and inviting listeners to move, dance, or engage with the music. It has a commanding and hypnotic rhythm, emphasizing the group's dynamic presence and infectious energy. Blackpink'll make ya reinforces the idea that the group drives the excitement and impact. It shows that their performance, charisma, and music are so powerful they can make the audience react, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally. The repetition of the phrase amplifies its intensity, creating a sense of urgency and anticipation while establishing the group as the central force of the MV. One of the girls stands poised above a circular symbol that closely resembles the yin-yang motif, immediately evoking themes of balance, duality, and harmony. The circle is visually divided into two contrasting sections. One side contains flowing water, representing fluidity, emotion, and movement, while the other features contour-like lines, which suggest structure, stability, and order. Visually, the composition is powerful. Her stance draws the viewer's eye to the center of the circle, highlighting the tension between the two halves while maintaining a sense of unity. infinity. The interplay of natural and geometric elements mirrors the overarching themes of the MV. A pole adorned with intricate meander patterns stretches across the frame, creating a strong visual anchor for the composition. The repeating geometric designs echo the motifs seen earlier in the MV, while adding texture and depth to an otherwise minimalistic element. What makes the shot particularly dynamic is the way waves bend and flow around the pole. The movement of the water contrasts with the rigid, structured lines of the pole. The bending waves also enhance the sense of scale and motion, making the pole appear longer and more monumental, as though it floats within an endless, dreamlike environment. One girl stands alone in the tunnel. The walls appear to slowly close in on her, creating a sense of compression and confinement. The movement of the tunnel enhances the feeling of pressure, highlighting her isolation and vulnerability within the space. Symbolically, the closing tunnel can represent obstacles, emotional pressure, or the feeling of being cornered. The scene transforms a simple physical setting into a powerful metaphor. The girls are seated within a circular device. The structure itself evokes a sense of rotation, with the circular motion implying continuous movement. The concept of being inside a rotating device merges human presence with movement and rhythm. The circular formation reinforces unity while still allowing each member's individuality to be highlighted within her designated space. One of the girls lifts her gaze upward, and as she does, a stone mask of her face materializes, suspended in the air. The sudden appearance of the mask gives the scene an otherworldly quality, as if a static representation of her identity has been extracted from reality and frozen in time. Her outfit and hairstyle transform. This change emphasizes her individuality and adaptability, contrasting with the stone mask that remains fixed in place. The mask acts as a visual echo of her previous self, a symbolic imprint that lingers even as she moves forward. The mask's permanence against her dynamic presence creates tension between past and present. The girl's outfit transforms from dark black clothing to white attire. The contrast between the two color palettes immediately signals a shift in mood, tone, and narrative. The black clothing evokes intensity, mystery, or introspection, while the switch to white conveys clarity, purity, and a sense of renewal or liberation. The change highlights the significance of the moment, making it feel like a turning point. By changing her outfit in this way, the MV emphasizes personal evolution and adds dramatic impact to her performance within the broader visual story. The lyrics "Go get it, I'ma go get it, never gonna settle for second, I need a gold medal, get up on the floor, tell me when to go, no slow jams, bump in through the singers when I do my go-go dance" convey determination, confidence, and high energy. "Go get it, I'ma go get it" immediately establishes a mindset of ambition and self-motivation, signaling that the singer is actively pursuing their goals without hesitation. "Never gonna settle for second, I need a gold medal" reinforces a competitive spirit and drive for excellence. It emphasizes a refusal to compromise or accept mediocrity, framing the singer as someone striving for the top in every aspect, whether in personal achievement, performance, or life in general. A gold medal is universally recognized as the symbol of first place and ultimate achievement in competitions. It represents excellence, mastery, and the highest level of success in a given field, whether in sports, academics, or other competitive arenas. Receiving a gold medal signifies that the individual or team has outperformed all others, reaching the pinnacle of performance and skill. The line also fits perfectly with the group because they've consistently positioned themselves at the top of the K-pop industry. With music releases that have broken records, a massive global fanbase, and numerous chart-topping achievements, they're widely regarded as one of the most successful K-pop groups of all time. The lyrics echo their real-world dominance. "Get up on the floor, tell me when to go, no slow jams, bump in through the singers when I do my go-go dance" shifts the focus to action and movement, linking the lyrics to dance and performance. The reference to upbeat music and energetic dancing complements the song's high-intensity vibe, suggesting confidence, fun, and a sense of celebration. Go-go dancers are performers hired by nightclubs and other venues to energize and entertain the crowd. Rather than performing a structured routine like traditional stage dancers, they usually freestyle on platforms, stages, or elevated boxes, moving in rhythm with the music to maintain a lively atmosphere. Their role is less about telling a story through choreography and more about creating visual excitement and encouraging audience engagement. The practice began in the 1960s and is widely associated with the French nightclub Whiskey à Go-Go. The term à go-go in French loosely means in abundance or galore, which contributed to the energetic branding of the concept. The trend quickly spread internationally, especially to the United States. The girl moves across the glass on all fours, her body low and deliberate. As she crawls, each time she lowers her gaze, a stone mask forms over her face and then falls away, shattering when it hits the glass. This creates a haunting and symbolic effect, as though fragments of her identity or persona are materializing and then being released with each movement. The act of crawling, combined with the formation and fall of the masks, emphasizes struggle, transition, and the shedding of layers. The masks themselves appear heavy, in stark contrast to her fluid motion, which underscores the tension between constraint and freedom, permanence and impermanence. Every falling mask can be seen as a metaphor for leaving behind past selves, suggesting a journey of transformation. Blackbirds with red eyes fly around the girl, creating an ominous atmosphere. Their dark feathers contrast sharply against the background, while the red eyes draw immediate attention, giving the birds a supernatural presence. Visually, they create a sense of chaos and unpredictability, emphasizing that the environment around her is intense or or charged with emotion. The camera tilts, reorienting the scene so that the previously horizontal glass becomes vertical. This sudden shift in perspective immediately heightens tension and creates a sense of disorientation. The tilt allows gravity to take effect, causing the shattered stone masks to tumble and fall, their fragments scattering across the frame. The movement of the broken pieces adds chaos and visual momentum, underscoring the sense of collapse or transformation. Amidst the falling debris, there's a brief moment where the girl is perfectly framed within the eye hole of one of the masks. This shot creates a powerful visual metaphor. She's both connected to and emerging from the remnants of the masks, suggesting themes of rebirth. The lyrics, "Oh no, I go when I wanna go, I'm so gone. Go reckless, go off like what could go wrong? I'm going all in, you should know that's my go-to. My whole crew with me, if I go then they go too," convey a bold sense of freedom, confidence, and loyalty. "I go when I wanna go, I'm so gone" establishes independence and self-assurance. "Go reckless, go off like what could go wrong?" amplifies the daring, adventurous energy. It shows a willingness to take risks, embodying a fearless attitude that's both playful and assertive. The phrase evokes a sense of living in the moment and committing fully to one's choices, no matter the outcome. "I'm going all in, you should know that's my go-to" reinforces this mindset of decisiveness and total commitment. It highlights a personal rule or instinct to fully dedicate oneself to the decision. When it comes to playing cards, going all in means betting everything you have in a single move. It leaves no room for hesitation or partial commitment. The move carries high risk and high reward. Either the player doubles their position dramatically or they lose everything in that round. "My whole crew with me, if I go then they go too" shows that the singer's actions ripple outward, influencing those around them, and that the group moves as a collective unit. The girl stands positioned between the massive plates of a hydraulic press, immediately drawing attention to both her courage and the scale of the machinery. The size and power of the press create an intense sense of danger and anticipation, suggesting control and focus even in the face of potential peril. It's a powerful visual metaphor. The hydraulic press can symbolize pressure, obstacles, or external forces, while her presence in the center conveys resilience, determination, and confidence in navigating high-stakes situations. Here the pre-chorus and chorus return. While the words remain the same, the visuals take a new direction, adding fresh layers of meaning and engagement. The sequence opens with a close-up shot of an eye being scanned, immediately creating a high-tech, intense atmosphere. The scanning motion emphasizes precision and scrutiny, as if the viewer, or some unseen force, is analyzing the subject with detail and focus. This visual introduces a sense of surveillance or examination, contrasting with previous more abstract or symbolic imagery. It draws attention to individuality and identity, highlighting the connection between the person and the technological or futuristic environment. The camera lingers just long enough for the eye to dominate the frame, making the scene intimate and slightly unsettling, while also suggesting themes of control, observation, and revelation. The girl is positioned on the edge of a cliff, suggesting a sense of risk, anticipation, or a pivotal moment of decision. Yet instead of a natural landscape, the surrounding space is a completely white and empty room. The white emptiness removes any external context or distraction, focusing all attention on her stance, posture, and emotional presence. The cliff edge becomes more symbolic than literal. It represents choice, transition, or the brink of change, while the empty room emphasizes isolation, introspection, and the significance of the moment. Visually, the scene combines tension and simplicity, making her figure stand out sharply and highlighting the metaphorical weight of standing at the edge, turning minimalism into a powerful storytelling tool. The girl grips a series of wires reminiscent of those used by stunt performers, giving the impression that she's suspended in midair. The wires add both a practical and symbolic layer, suggesting control, balance, and the ability to navigate challenging environments with precision. They also lend a sense of tension and anticipation. Beneath her, the road curves in a wavy, winding pattern, creating a sense of unpredictability and movement. The winding road represents metaphorical challenges, ups and downs, and the idea that the journey isn't straightforward, requiring skill, focus, and determination to navigate. The wires and the winding road create a striking composition that blends action, choreography, and symbolism. The scene conveys themes of control, resilience, and perseverance, turning a simple prop and setting into a visually and conceptually layered moment that reflects both physical and emotional journey. The girl reaches out and grasps the road, but it appears to be made of sand, slipping and crumbling through her fingers as if impossible to hold. The visual emphasizes impermanence and fragility, creating a sense of tension as the ground she relies on seems to dissolve beneath her touch. This imagery can symbolize instability, fleeting control, or the challenge of trying to grasp something elusive. The scene transitions seamlessly to her holding a metal grate, which is solid, structured, and unyielding. The contrast between the crumbling sand and the sturdy metal highlights a shift from uncertainty to stability, from fragility to control. Her grip on the grate conveys strength and precision, suggesting that she has adapted to the environment and found something reliable to hold onto. The camera angle shifts, revealing a dramatic change in perspective. It's now revealed to be a woman whose torso contains a gaping hole. The girl's hand is gripping the insides of this figure, creating a visceral and uncanny visual that immediately commands attention. The woman's green, rusted skin and clothing add an unsettling, industrial quality to the scene, blending organic and metallic textures. This coloration gives the figure a sculptural and mechanical feel. The scene is layered with with meaning. It could represent navigating inner spaces or confronting hidden parts of oneself. The combination of body horror aesthetic, texture, and perspective makes the sequence both dramatic and memorable within the MV. The girl grips the metal grate firmly and pulls with all her strength. As she does, the grate begins to break apart, splintering and bending under the force. The destruction of the solid, structured metal contrasts sharply with the earlier scenes of fragile sand. As the grate collapses, the camera zooms into the hole in the woman's stomach, drawing the viewer into a more intimate and unsettling perspective. The zoom amplifies the sense of scale and immersion, making the interior of the hollow figure feel vast and mysterious. This close-up emphasizes the visceral textures, the green, rusted skin, and worn surfaces, while highlighting the girl's interaction with this uncanny space. Symbolically, the breaking of the grate and the zoom into the hollow can represent the shattering of barriers, the confrontation with hidden or internalized forces, or the discovery of something concealed beneath a rigid exterior. The girl is positioned within the same circular device that another member occupied earlier in the MV, creating a sense of continuity and visual callback. The device's circular structure frames her figure perfectly, drawing attention to her stance, posture, and presence. Its geometric shape conveys balance and symmetry. The Chinese longevity symbols on the device are clearly visible. Another girl comes bursting through the ceiling, her entrance immediately commanding attention. The motion is explosive. As she emerges, she peels away layers from her face, like shedding dead skin, revealing a refreshed and renewed appearance underneath. This imagery strongly evokes themes of rebirth, transformation, and renewal. The girl crawling across the glass surface looks downward, revealing an endless tunnel, heightening the sense of vertigo and isolation. As she peers into the tunnel, more stone masks form over her face and shatter, continuing the motif of identity, transformation, and shedding of layers. The girl is completely crushed by the hydraulic presses. Then she reappears, emerging from the imprint left in the presses. This conveys resilience, transformation, and supernatural durability, making her reemergence feel both triumphant and symbolic. The MV briefly showcases a series of different items inscribed with words from various languages, each translating to go or variations like let's go. The quick succession of shots creates a rapid, energetic rhythm, emphasizing motion, action, and global reach. The items themselves ground the words in tangible, everyday forms while highlighting their significance. The group has fans across the globe. By featuring the word go in multiple languages, the MV acknowledges and celebrates this global fanbase. One of the girls forcefully breaks the handles of the device she's standing in, instantly transforming the prop into a symbol of power and defiance. The act of destroying the handles conveys control and determination, emphasizing her ability to manipulate and dominate her environment rather than being constrained by it. Destroying the handles can represent liberation, breaking free from restrictions, or challenging imposed boundaries. In this scene, it becomes clear that the girls are positioned inside the propeller. The spinning, circular environment creates a visual metaphor for energy, momentum, and cyclical motion. It conveys the idea that the girls are part of a larger mechanism, seamlessly integrated into a structured system while still maintaining their individuality through distinct poses, gestures, and timing. The symbol on the propeller seems to resemble a reference mark used in Chinese, Japanese, and Korean writing. It's often used to draw attention to a note or important detail, functioning much like an asterisk does in English texts. Since it's commonly used to signal pay attention or to indicate additional meaning, its presence on the device can suggest that the object itself holds significance beyond its surface appearance. The lyrics, "When your heart is broken, baby," "Darkness on the edge of town," "Try to keep it open, baby," "Try to let your walls come down," convey vulnerability, emotional struggle, and the effort to remain open despite pain. It immediately sets a tone of heartbreak, acknowledging the deep hurt and disappointment that comes with a broken relationship or emotional loss. It captures the raw and relatable feeling of being exposed after trusting someone or investing in a connection that didn't work out. "Darkness on the edge of town" adds a layer of atmosphere and metaphor. Darkness here means isolation, uncertainty, or emotional turmoil, while "on the edge of town" evokes a liminal space, being on the boundary between safety and the unknown, familiarity and change, where one must navigate pain and uncertainty. "Try to keep it open, baby," "Try to let your walls come down," express a struggle to remain receptive and vulnerable despite the hurt. The repetition of "try" underscores that this is difficult. Maintaining openness in the face of emotional pain is an ongoing effort. The people appear again. Each of them wears a small tassel on their hat, reminiscent of a norige, which is a traditional Korean decorative pendant. This subtle detail adds cultural texture to the scene, grounding the otherwise surreal or abstract imagery with a nod to heritage and tradition. The paddles themselves are different. Unlike earlier shots where they were adorned with the Greek meander patterns, these now feature the stylized "go" word directly into their design. The repetition of "go" across multiple paddles emphasizes the song's central message of empowerment, determination, and collective energy. The girl appears to be composed of wax, giving her a fragile appearance. Parts of her body begin to melt away, dripping and deforming in slow, fluid motions that emphasize vulnerability and impermanence. The visual is both eerie and symbolic. The gradual breakdown of her wax-like form can represent the release of tension, the fragility of identity, or the shedding of an old self. The scene then shifts to four masks melting simultaneously. It's clear that the masks represent the four members of the group. This imagery directly connects to the lyric about letting your walls come down. The masks act as metaphors for protective facades, facades, emotional shields, or constructed identities that the members have maintained. These walls dissolve, signaling vulnerability, openness, and emotional honesty. The synchronized melting of all four masks shows that the members are undergoing this process together. The lyrics, "I know you're frozen, baby. Love can make you turn to stone. You could stop and be alone." Or you could convey a sense of emotional stasis, hesitation, and the transformative power of connection. "I know you're frozen, baby" immediately acknowledges a state of vulnerability or emotional paralysis, suggesting that the subject is holding back, cautious, or guarded. It captures the universal feeling of being stuck or immobilized by fear. "Love can make you turn to stone" uses a vivid metaphor to express how emotional pain or heartbreak can harden a person. It emphasizes that love, while powerful and desirable, can leave someone emotionally rigid if they're not willing to open themselves up. It shows the girl with the stone mask during the "Love can make you turn to stone" line, making the visual connection direct and unmistakable. It reinforces the metaphor in a literal way. The mask becomes a physical manifestation of emotional protection, showing how love, when it fails or hurts, can cause someone to harden themselves as a way of coping. "You could stop and be alone," or "you could" present a clear choice, highlighting the tension between retreat and engagement. The lyrics suggest that the listener can either remain isolated, safe but stagnant, or take a risk and embrace connection. The unfinished, or "you could," invites the listener to imagine the possibilities. The girl has insect-like wings that are made of ice. As sunlight hits them, the wings begin to melt, creating a sense of fragility and impermanence. The melting wings can also suggest the fleeting nature of beauty, the passage of time, or the shedding of protective layers, aligning with broader themes of transformation and vulnerability in the MV. The girls open and close their eyes in perfect sync with the beat, creating a rhythmic effect that complements the tempo of the song. The timing of their movements emphasizes precision and unity. The framing of the shots is particularly creative. Two faces are shown at a time, but only one eye is visible per person, adding a sense of mystery and abstraction. The Chinese longevity symbols are prominently displayed on the floor of the room, extending the motif seen earlier in the MV. The two horizontal poles intersect to form a perfect X at the center of the frame, creating a focal point that immediately draws the viewer's attention. It can also serve as a symbolic element. X often represents a crossroads, a point of convergence, or even the idea of marking a significant spot. The girl positioned on the glass forcibly slams her face into the surface, immediately creating a sense of aggression, determination, and emotional intensity. The act is visceral and shocking. The entire platform shatters, sending cracks radiating outward in every direction. The destruction of the glass can represent breaking through limitations. The members stand back to back around a central column of water. The black and white color palette strips away distraction, emphasizing contrast, form, and the fluid interplay between the performers and their environment. The water adds a sense of energy and motion, while the propeller reinforces rhythm and circularity, creating a visually dynamic composition. The members change positions between scenes, creating a sense of fluidness that interacts with the surrounding elements rather than existing independently. The camera zooms in on a girl's eye, immediately drawing attention to her gaze and creating a sense of intimacy. The eye is colored black and pink, directly referencing the group's name. The focus on a single eye also amplifies emotional resonance. The black conveys strength, mystery, and intensity, while the pink adds vibrancy, playfulness, and femininity, creating a balance that mirrors the group's signature concept. There are more scenes of the people, but with a visual twist. The composition is perfectly symmetrical down the middle so that the left and right halves of the frame mirror each other exactly. This symmetry creates a sense of balance and harmony, making the choreography and positioning feel meticulously orchestrated. Each side is supporting and reflecting the other, much like the members themselves function as both individuals and part of a collective. A giant planet dominates the background, but what immediately draws attention is the black and pink eye embedded in its surface. This detail is obviously a reference to the group's name, blending cosmic scale with branding in a bold and memorable way. The girls are once again shown inside the propeller, moving rapidly in synchronized circular motions. The speed of their movement creates a thrilling visual effect. Suddenly, the device explodes and breaks apart. The explosion transforms the previously controlled, rhythmic environment into chaos, amplifying tension and visual spectacle. There's another close-up of a black and pink eye, reinforcing the recurring visual motif tied to the group's name. The girl with the melting, ice-like wings holds her shoulder, creating a posture that's both protective and introspective. The gesture shows vulnerability and self-comfort, as if she's shielding herself from the transformative, melting process occurring around her. The lyrics "mission" and "Blackpink" are repeated multiple times. The word "mission" evokes focus, drive, and a clear objective, suggesting that the group is confidently pursuing their goals with precision and intent. By pairing "mission" with the group's name, the lyrics create a direct connection between their identity and their ambition, highlighting Blackpink's confidence, power, and unity as a team. The repeated phrasing also has a rallying effect, energizing the listener and leaving a lasting impression of momentum and resolve. The camera lingers on a woman lying on the ground, who's most likely the same figure with the rusted green skin shown earlier in the MV. Her skin turns transparent, revealing the structure of her bones beneath. It feels intimate and unsettling at the same time, inviting the viewer to look past surface appearance and confront what lies underneath. The members are shown standing alone in individual shots, each framed separately rather than as a group. This shift in staging places full focus on each member's presence, allowing their individuality to stand out more clearly. The isolation in the framing creates a moment of intensity and emphasis, as if each person is taking ownership of the spotlight in turn. The screen shakes in sync with the beat of the music. This vibration adds a physical dimension to the rhythm, making the impact of the song feel tangible. The editing and camera movement themselves become part of the performance. The members are shown looking at themselves in the mirror, creating a moment that feels reflective both visually and symbolically. By focusing on their gaze as they study their own image, the MV shifts from outward performance to inward contemplation. The act of looking into a mirror can suggest self-examination, growth, or confrontation with one's true identity. Two figures stand facing one another in a quiet, deliberate standoff. One appears male and the other female, their positioning suggesting confrontation, recognition, or connection. The female figure appears to be the same woman seen earlier in the video, but now transformed. Her presence here signals rebirth and renewal. She no longer appears broken or deteriorating, instead she stands composed and fully formed. The male figure's hair incorporates the stylized go, embedding the title motif directly into his physical appearance. The male figure is depicted in darker tones, his skin dusted with glitter that catches the light and creates a cosmic effect. In contrast, the female figure appears lighter, both in tone and overall presentation. Her brightness creates a striking visual opposition to his darker palette, establishing a clear duality within the frame. In the final moment, the two figures move closer and kiss as the credits begin to appear across the screen. The gesture feels conclusive, offering a sense of resolution. Their kiss serves as a point of union, bringing together the contrasting energies. The darker tones and the lighter tones gradually blend together. This merging effect shows that opposing forces aren't meant to remain separate, but to coexist and fuse into something whole. The credits reveal that Teddy is listed as the producer. This detail is significant, as Teddy has long been associated with shaping a distinct sonic and conceptual identity within the K-pop industry. His production credit signals creative oversight not only in the music itself, but often in the broader artistic direction, tone, and structure of the track. Rather than appearing in the conventional straight, scrolling format, the credits are presented in a circular arrangement. This design choice immediately stands out. The credits are formatted to resemble a yin-yang symbol. This layout mirrors the earlier symbolic references to duality, balance, and interconnected forces. The credits reveal that AI played a role in the production. The acknowledgement underscores the technical sophistication behind the MV. For the Go title card, the animation begins with the text forming a perfect circle, echoing the recurring circular imagery seen throughout the MV. The circle shifts to the right, revealing the G of Go, and that wraps up the breakdown of this MV. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel.
Love Dive looks like a sleek, confident pop anthem about falling in love. But underneath the glamorous visuals and addictive chorus lies something much older. A story rooted in the myths of gods, desire, temptation, and dangerous attraction. Love Dive mirrors themes that have existed for thousands of years in Greek mythology. And once you see the connections, the song starts to feel less like a typical love track and more like a modern myth retold through K-pop. So in this video, we're breaking down the hidden mythology behind Love Dive and the symbolism you probably missed. Let's first talk about Narcissus, because understanding his story completely changes the way you see the MV. According to the myth, Narcissus was a young man so unbelievably beautiful that everyone who saw him fell in love with him. But there was one problem: he rejected every person who admired him. He was cold, distant, and obsessed with his own perfection. One day, the gods decided to punish him for his arrogance. Narcissus came across a still pool of water and saw his own reflection staring back at him. But he didn't realize it was himself. He became completely mesmerized by the image in the water, falling hopelessly in love with the reflection he could never truly reach. The more he stared, the deeper the obsession became. He stopped eating, sleeping, and leaving the water's edge because he couldn't bear to look away. Eventually, Narcissus wasted away, consumed by his own desire, and according to some versions of the myth, he transformed into the flower we now call the Narcissus. It's a tragic story about beauty, obsession, temptation, and self-destructive love. Themes that show up everywhere in Love Dive. And that's what makes the song so interesting. It doesn't just reference love in a normal romantic sense. The song captures the dangerous side of attraction that Greek mythology constantly warned about. The idea that desire can completely consume you. The word narcissistic ultimately derives from the Greek myth of Narcissus. This mythological connection is directly referenced in Love Dive through the lyric, "Narcissistic, my God, I love it." The line evokes the idea of becoming enchanted by desire, attraction, and even one's own emotions in the same way Narcissus became consumed by his own reflection. Rather than using narcissistic strictly in the clinical or negative sense, the song reframes it into something more seductive and emotionally intoxicating. The lyric plays with themes of self-confidence, temptation, and surrendering to overwhelming feelings, which fits the song's larger atmosphere of dangerous attraction and dramatic romance. There's also a clear visual reference to the myth, particularly through the recurring imagery of a pool of water. By integrating this imagery, the video strengthens the mythological subtext and ties the visual storytelling directly to the concept behind the song. But that isn't the only mythological layer present. There are also clear references to Eros, the Greek god associated with desire, attraction, and romantic longing. In the MV, this is visually suggested through recurring motifs like heart-shaped arrows and stylized visual effects. You may also recognize this figure more commonly through his Roman equivalent, Cupid, who carries similar symbolism in Western visual culture. By incorporating these references, the MV blends classical mythological imagery with modern pop aesthetics, using familiar symbols of love and desire to reinforce its central themes of attraction, intensity, and emotional surrender. And those are all the major mythological references present in Love Dive. It's interesting to see how elements drawn from ancient Greek mythology are reinterpreted and woven into a modern pop context. What stands out is how these classical ideas continue to resonate in contemporary media. Even though the original myths are thousands of years old and rooted in very different cultural settings, their core themes of self-reflection, desire, and emotional intensity still translate effectively into modern music and storytelling. It highlights a broader pattern in modern entertainment. Ancient Greek mythology still serves as a creative foundation, not because audiences need to recognize the source material, but because the underlying ideas remain emotionally and thematically powerful across time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing K-pop content like this. It really helps support the channel and lets you know when new content like this is coming out.
At first glance, Les Seraphim's Easy might seem like a pretty straightforward K-pop music video. You've got the catchy song, the choreography, the incredible visuals, and of course, the members looking effortlessly cool. But the more you actually pay attention to what's happening, the more you realize there's a lot more going on beneath the surface. Because despite the title, there's really nothing easy about this music video. There are religious references, mythology, symbolism, callbacks to Les Seraphim's own history, and even details that connect directly to the individual members. Some of these references are pretty obvious, while others are easy to miss unless you know what you're looking for. So today, I want to go through the Easy music video and break down some of the details that make it much more interesting than it might initially seem. Let's start with the church. At first, the church might just seem like a cool location that fits the darker aesthetic of the music video. But when you remember what Les Seraphim's name actually means, the location becomes a lot more interesting. The name Les Seraphim comes from seraphim, which are celestial beings traditionally associated with angels in Christian theology. The group has also built a lot of its identity around themes of fearlessness, perfection, temptation, transformation, and breaking away from expectations. So putting the members inside a church creates an interesting contrast. You have this traditionally religious environment associated with purity, divinity, and angels, while Les Seraphim is presenting a much more rebellious and confident image. And there's another interesting detail about the location. The church is in Los Angeles, California. And if you didn't know, Los Angeles literally translates to the angels. So we have a group whose name is connected to angels, standing inside a church, in a city whose name literally means the angels. Maybe that's just a coincidence, but either way, it's a pretty amusing combination. The church itself also has some cinematic history. It's been used as a filming location for various productions, including movies like The Amazing Spider-Man and John Wick. So this isn't some random building that just happened to look cool on camera. It's already a location with a history of being used for dramatic and cinematic imagery. And when you put all of those details together, the church starts feeling like more than just a backdrop. It's part of the visual language of the music video. Another detail I really like involves Kazuha. There's a line where she says, "Pull up and I rip it up like ballet." And that line hits very differently when you know her background. Before becoming a member of Les Seraphim, Kazuha spent years training in ballet. This wasn't just some hobby she picked up on the side. She dedicated a huge portion of her life to classical ballet training before entering the K-pop industry. So when she says like ballet, she's not making some random comparison. She's talking about something she actually knows extremely well. And I think that's what makes the line so clever. Ballet is normally associated with grace, elegance, precision, control, and delicate movements. But then you have the words "rip it up." That's a completely different energy. Instead of presenting ballet as something soft and delicate, the lyric turns that precision into something aggressive and powerful. It's almost like Kazuha is taking something she was trained to do with incredible control and bringing that same skill into a completely different environment. She's not necessarily leaving ballet behind. She's taking what she learned from it and turning it into another source of power. Then we have one of the more visually interesting scenes involving Yeonjun and Eunchae. Yeonjun is shown resting in Yoonchi's lap, and the way the scene is composed strongly resembles Michelangelo's Pietà. For anyone who doesn't know, the Pietà is the famous Renaissance sculpture depicting the Virgin Mary holding the body of Jesus after his crucifixion. Obviously, the scene in Easy isn't literally recreating that story, but the visual resemblance is pretty striking. The positioning of the bodies and the way Eunchae holds Yeonjun creates this very recognizable image of someone being protected and mourned. That gives the scene a completely different feeling. Instead of simply looking like two members comforting each other, it suddenly carries associations with grief, vulnerability, mourning, and devotion. And then we have the golden tears. Gold tears have appeared in various mythological traditions, including stories associated with the Norse goddess Freya, whose tears are sometimes described as turning into gold. Whether that specific mythology was intentionally referenced here is open to interpretation, but the combination of the religious imagery and supernatural elements definitely gives the scene a much more mythological atmosphere. It's not just sadness anymore. The emotion is being turned into something almost supernatural and sacred. Then there's Sakura's line, "To the world, I'm halfway seraphim." And that one directly connects back to the group's identity. Obviously, seraphim refers back to the origin of Le Seraphim's name. But I think the more interesting word in that sentence is halfway. She's not saying she's completely seraphim. She's halfway there. And that creates an interesting distinction between the image people see and who she actually is. To the world can be interpreted as referring to the public image of an idol. When you're watching Sakura perform, you're seeing a carefully constructed version of her. You're seeing the performer, the celebrity, the character presented to the audience. But halfway suggests that she's not completely that idealized image. She's somewhere between the fantasy and reality. And that actually fits pretty well with Le Seraphim's broader themes of rejecting perfection and embracing who you really are. They're using this almost angelic imagery while simultaneously reminding us that they're not literally perfect beings. They're human. And that contrast seems pretty intentional. Sakura's appearance in the video also has some interesting vampire imagery. And if you're familiar with Sakura's career before Le Seraphim, you might notice a possible connection to IVE's one song, Vampire. Obviously, we can't know for certain whether this was intended as a direct callback unless the creators confirm it, but it's still a fun connection to notice. Sakura has gone through several different eras throughout her career, so seeing imagery that potentially connects back to one of her previous concepts creates the possibility of a little bit of continuity. It's almost like you're getting a small callback to an earlier version of Sakura, while she's now part of a completely different group and concept. Then there's Chaewon's bathtub scene. And this is probably one of those moments where your first reaction is just going to be, okay, what exactly am I watching? She's sitting in a bathtub, and a hairdryer gets dropped into the water. Obviously, that immediately looks like something that should end very badly. Except instead of destroying her, it somehow makes her stronger. And that's where I think the scene becomes interesting as a metaphor. She's placed in a situation where she's seemingly completely vulnerable. Something happens that should overwhelm or destroy her. But instead of breaking her, it transforms her. The thing that should have been her downfall becomes part of what makes her stronger. And that fits really well with Le Seraphim's overall themes of resilience and fearlessness. It's basically the idea that the things that are supposed to destroy you can sometimes end up making you stronger. Then Sakura has another line that directly connects back to Le Seraphim's history. She says, "Get, set, go, come and see me, I'm the fearless." And if you've followed Le Seraphim since their debut, you should immediately recognize the reference. The group's name is an anagram of I'm Fearless. And Fearless was also the title of their debut song and debut mini-album. So in one short line, Sakura is essentially referencing the group's name and their debut identity at the same time. It's a pretty clever little callback. The group started with this idea of being fearless, and even years later, that concept is still being incorporated into their music. Finally, we have the ending of the music video. All of the members are sitting together while vines grow around them. Vines can symbolize a lot of different things depending on how they're used. They can represent growth, connection, transformation, resilience, and the passage of time. And I think that works particularly well here because all of the members are together. The vines aren't just surrounding one person. They're growing around the entire group and connecting them. You could interpret that as representing their bond, their growth together, or simply the idea that they've become stronger as a group. There's also something interesting about vines themselves. They don't grow in a perfectly straight line. They twist, spread, adapt, and find their way around obstacles. And that fits pretty nicely with the overall message we've been seeing throughout the video. The members aren't presented as perfect, untouchable beings. They're constantly changing, adapting, and transforming. And that's really what makes Easy so interesting to me. If you only watch the music video once, you might come away thinking it's just a stylish K-pop video with great choreography and cool visuals. And there's nothing wrong with that. But once you start looking closer, there are so many little details that give the video additional layers. You've got the church and the angelic symbolism. You've got the connection between Los Angeles and the angels. You've got Kazuha referencing ballet, which has a very personal connection to her own history. You've got the Piet-inspired imagery with Yunjin and Eunchae. You've got the golden tears and possible mythology references. You've got Sakura talking about being halfway seraphim. You've got the possible callback to her vampire era with Eyes One. You've got Chaewon's bathtub scene representing resilience and transformation. You've got the I'm the Fearless reference connecting the song back to Le Seraphim's debut. And then you have the vines surrounding all of the members at the end. So despite the title, Easy is actually a music video with a lot to unpack. And that's one of the things I love about K-pop. You can watch a music video because it looks cool, and then suddenly you're researching Renaissance sculptures, Norse mythology, religious symbolism, the group's history, and the members' backgrounds just to figure out what the heck you were looking at. And honestly, that's what makes these videos so fun to analyze. So if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more K-pop content, and let me know which music video I should analyze next. At first listen, ITZY's Wannabe sounds like exactly what you'd expect from a high-energy K-pop empowerment anthem. It's loud, catchy, confident, and packed with attitude. You get the powerful choreography, the memorable hook, and that unmistakable message of, I'm going to do whatever I want. But that's only the surface. Once you actually start paying attention to what Wannabe is saying, the song becomes much more interesting. It's not simply about being confident or telling people to mind their own business. It's about the pressure that comes from constantly being told who you're supposed to be. It's about expectations, other people's opinions, and most importantly, refusing to let those opinions define you. The entire song revolves around this idea of identity. Who are you when you stop worrying about what everyone else wants you to be? And that's what makes Wannabe so effective. It's not telling you to become the perfect version of yourself according to somebody else's standards. It's telling you to figure out who you actually are and be that person. So let's break down some of the lyrics and visuals and look at what Wannabe is really trying to say. The song immediately establishes its message with the opening line, "You're nagging nonstop, but I'm my own boss." Right away, you know exactly where the song is going. This isn't just a random insult thrown at someone who's being annoying. That constant nagging can represent all of the different voices telling you how you're supposed to live. It could be your parents telling you what career you should pursue, friends telling you how you should dress, society telling you what you're supposed to look like, strangers on the internet criticizing everything you do, or even the pressure that comes with being constantly watched as a public figure. There's always someone who thinks they know better. Someone telling you that you should change your appearance, someone telling you that you're acting incorrectly, someone telling you that you aren't talented enough, or someone telling you that you should be more like somebody else. And after hearing that long enough, it can become incredibly difficult to figure out what you actually want. That's why the response, "I'm my own boss," is so important. It's essentially the song drawing a line in the sand. You can have your opinion and you can give me advice, but ultimately, I'm the person who has to live my life. I'm the one making the decisions, dealing with the consequences, and deciding who I want to become. I also really like the contrast between those two phrases. Your nagging nonstop sounds chaotic and suffocating. It's repetitive, noisy, and feels like there's no escape from all these opinions being thrown at you. Then you get, I'm my own boss. It's a short, confident statement that immediately shuts down all of that noise. The song doesn't spend 5 minutes trying to justify itself or ask for permission. It's simply saying, I'm in control of myself. And that's essentially the foundation of everything Wannabe is about. The next lines take that idea even further. Gotta let me work it out for myself. Don't need your guidance. This is where the song becomes more than just a generic confidence anthem. The message isn't necessarily that other people are always wrong. It's saying that sometimes you need the freedom to figure things out yourself. You need to make your own mistakes, learn from them, experiment, and figure out what kind of person you actually want to become. That's something people don't always allow each other to do. There's often this assumption that if someone gives you advice, you should automatically follow it. Your parents have expectations, your teachers have expectations, your friends have expectations, and the internet has an absolutely endless supply of people who somehow know exactly how you should live your life despite having never met you. Wannabe pushes back against all of that. The speaker isn't claiming to have everything figured out. They're saying, let me figure it out. And there's an important difference between those two ideas. It's not necessarily arrogance. It's independence. The rejection of guidance is especially interesting because guidance is normally considered a good thing. We're taught that we should listen to people with more experience, and obviously, sometimes that's absolutely true. But there comes a point where too much guidance stops being guidance and starts becoming control. If everyone around you is constantly telling you what you should do, eventually you're no longer making your own decisions. You're just following instructions. And that's exactly what Wannabe refuses to do. The song doesn't want someone else designing the speaker's identity. It wants the speaker to discover that identity for themselves. And that's really the heart of the entire song. It's not saying, I know exactly who I am and I'll never change. It's more like, I don't need you to tell me who I'm supposed to become. And honestly, that's a much more realistic message because nobody has themselves completely figured out.
People change. People make mistakes.
People discover new interests. People realize that something they thought they wanted isn't actually what they want. That's part of growing up. If you're constantly trying to satisfy everyone else's expectations, you don't really get the opportunity to discover any of that. That's why this song's message of independence feels so relatable. It's not necessarily about rejecting everyone around you. It's about making sure you don't lose yourself while trying to please them. And that's what makes Wannabe more than just another song about being confident. It's about self-definition. You don't have to become the person your parents imagined. You don't have to become the person your friends expect. You don't have to become the person strangers on social media think you should be. You don't even have to become the person you thought you were going to be 5 years ago. You can figure things out as you go. And that's ultimately what ITZY is selling with Wannabe. Not perfection, not approval, and not some impossible ideal version of yourself. It's the freedom to be yourself. And considering how much pressure idols themselves experience to look, act, and perform a certain way, there's an extra layer to that message when it's coming from a group like ITZY. They're literally performing in an industry where image matters enormously. They're constantly being watched, photographed, compared, criticized, and judged. So when they sing about refusing to become what other people want them to be, the message feels particularly appropriate. They're essentially saying that even when everyone has an opinion about who you should be, you're still allowed to decide for yourself. And that's why Wannabe has stuck with people for so long. It's incredibly catchy, but underneath all that energy is a pretty simple idea. You don't need to become somebody else's version of you. You don't need permission to be yourself, and you don't need to spend your entire life trying to satisfy people who will always find something else to criticize. Sometimes you just need to say, this is who I am. And that's exactly what makes Wannabe more than just a loud, catchy K-pop anthem. It's a song about taking ownership of your identity and refusing to let everyone else write it for you. What if one of the most successful K-pop girl groups of its generation never had to end? What if IZ*ONE wasn't working toward a predetermined expiration date and instead had the opportunity to keep growing, experimenting, and building their legacy together? Because by the time they reached the end, they didn't feel like a group that had run out of momentum. If anything, it felt like they were just getting started. Their albums were selling, their fanbase was growing, their performances were getting stronger, and their identity as a group had become incredibly recognizable. Everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. And then in 2021, it was over. But here's the important part. IZ*ONE didn't disband because they failed. They didn't disappear because they stopped being popular. They didn't reach the point where people stopped caring about them. Their ending had essentially been written into their story from the beginning. And that's what makes their disbandment so frustrating to think about. The interesting question isn't necessarily, why did IZ*ONE end? We already know why. The more interesting question is, what if they didn't? What if the contract had been extended? What if the members had stayed together for another 3 years? What if they had gotten 5 more years to build their discography and figure out what kind of group they wanted to become? Because if IZ*ONE had continued, there's a very real possibility that the K-pop landscape we have today could look completely different. To understand why, we first have to understand what made IZ*ONE so unusual. They weren't a traditional K-pop group created by one company from the ground up. They were formed through a survival show, which meant their entire existence was built around a temporary project. From the beginning, there was an expiration date attached to the group. Imagine debuting in a group, spending years building friendships with your members, developing a fan base, creating music, and becoming successful, while knowing that eventually the entire thing is supposed to end. That's basically the situation IZ*ONE was put into. And despite that enormous limitation, they became incredibly successful. They developed a sound that was instantly recognizable, combining elegant, bright, dramatic, and sometimes surprisingly emotional elements. Their releases felt cohesive, their performances were polished, and over time, they developed an identity that felt like their own. They weren't simply 12 popular trainees thrown together and hoping something worked. IZ*ONE became IZ*ONE. And that's what makes the timing of their disbandment so interesting. Because by the time they reached their final releases, they weren't desperately trying to prove themselves anymore. They had already established who they were. Their sales were strong, their fanbase was massive, and their performances had become increasingly polished. They had momentum. And normally, that's exactly when a group gets to enter another stage of its career. The first few years are about establishing yourself. Then comes the period where a group can experiment, evolve, take bigger risks, and figure out what their long-term identity is going to be. IZ*ONE never got to experience that stage. They reached the point where they could have expanded their sound and grown even further, and then the clock simply ran out. So, let's imagine that the clock doesn't run out. Imagine IZ*ONE continues for another 3 years. Suddenly, the entire trajectory of the group changes. Instead of 12 members eventually going their separate ways, you have all 12 continuing under the same name. Their discography gets larger. Their group identity becomes even stronger. They have more opportunities to experiment with different concepts, different sounds, and different styles. And more importantly, they have time. Time is one of the most valuable things a K-pop group can have. A group can change dramatically. Over 5 years, members become more comfortable with each other. Their personalities become more familiar to fans. Their performances improve. Their music evolves. Their confidence grows. IZ*ONE was denied that long-term evolution because the group was never designed to exist that long. And then we get to the really interesting part. What happened after IZ*ONE ended? The members didn't simply disappear. They scattered across the K-pop industry. And some of those members went on to become major stars all over again.
Take IVE.
Yoojin and Wonyoung went from being members of IZ*ONE to becoming central figures in a completely new group. And IVE didn't just quietly debut and build a small following. They exploded. They established an entirely different identity, sound, and image and quickly became one of the biggest girl groups of their generation. Then there's LE SSERAFIM. Sakura and Chaiwon also took what they had built through IZ*ONE and entered another completely different group. And once again, they didn't simply repeat the exact same formula. LE SSERAFIM developed a much sharper, more confident identity, with themes surrounding fearlessness, self-confidence, transformation, and breaking away from expectations. So now you have two major groups with completely different identities, both containing members who came from the same place. And that's where the alternate history question becomes really interesting. What happens if IZ*ONE never ends? Because if IZ*ONE stays together, IVE doesn't necessarily happen in the same way. LE SSERAFIM doesn't necessarily happen in the same way. The timing changes. The members' careers change. The company's plans change. The entire distribution of talent across the industry changes. Maybe IVE still eventually happens, but without Wonyoung and Yujin. Maybe LE SSERAFIM still exists, but without Sakura and Chaiwon. Maybe those groups debut later. Maybe they have completely different members. Maybe they never happen at
all.
And that's the weird thing about this alternate timeline. By ending IZ*ONE, the industry didn't simply lose one group. It gained several new ones. IZ*ONE essentially became a talent pipeline into the next generation of K-pop. The members took everything they had learned from their time together and carried it into completely different projects. And those projects became huge. So you have to ask yourself, which outcome would have had the bigger impact? A single IZ*ONE that continues growing for another 5 years, or an IZ*ONE that ends and spreads its members across the industry, allowing them to create multiple successful groups? There's no obvious answer. If IZ*ONE had stayed together, they could have become an even bigger and more established group. They could have built a much larger discography, toured more extensively, experimented with new concepts, and potentially become one of the defining girl groups of their era. But because they ended, their members became part of multiple different stories. And then there's the bigger question about the survival show system itself. IZ*ONE was created under a model where the group was never supposed to last forever. The members were brought together, given a fixed contract, built a fanbase, released music, and then eventually went their separate ways. But what if IZ*ONE had been allowed to continue? A group that's successful staying together could have challenged the idea that these project groups needed to have such rigid expiration dates. If a temporary group becomes massively successful, why automatically end it at its predetermined deadline? You could imagine other project groups looking at IZ*ONE and thinking, wait, why can't we do that too? Companies might have approached these contracts differently. Fans might have demanded longer extensions. The entire concept of temporary survival show groups could have evolved. Instead, IZ*ONE followed the original plan. The contract ended. The group ended. And the members moved forward. But ironically, the ending may have been exactly what created the next chapter of their influence. Because if IZ*ONE had stayed together, you get one incredibly successful group continuing to grow. Instead, you got members joining new groups, pursuing solo careers, appearing in different projects, and influencing K-pop from multiple directions. It's almost like IZ*ONE didn't disappear. They fragmented. And each piece went on to become something completely different. That's what makes the what if so fascinating. Would IZ*ONE have become even bigger if they stayed together? Would they have eventually become one of the defining girl groups of their generation? Would their music have evolved into something completely different? Would IVE and LE SSERAFIM even exist in anything resembling their current forms? Would other groups have been affected by their continued dominance?
There's no way to know.
And that's what makes alternate history discussions like this so interesting. We're not just imagining a group releasing a few extra albums. We're imagining an entirely different K-pop timeline. One where IZ*ONE never reached their final countdown. One where the 12 members continued building something together instead of being forced to start over in different directions. But there's also an argument that the opposite outcome was just as important. Maybe IZ*ONE ending was what allowed their members to become the stars they are today. Maybe Wonyoung and Yujin needed IVE. Maybe Sakura and Chaiwon needed LE SSERAFIM. Maybe their individual careers would never have developed in quite the same way if IZ*ONE had remained their permanent home. So perhaps the most interesting thing about IZ*ONE isn't simply that they ended. It's what happened because they ended. One group became multiple stories. One fandom became several fandoms. One successful project became the foundation for several major careers. And that's why IZ*ONE's legacy is so unusual. They didn't get the chance to have the traditional long-running K-pop career. They didn't get to slowly evolve over a decade. They didn't get to decide when they were finished. Their ending was predetermined before they even debuted. And yet, somehow, they still managed to leave behind an influence that extended far beyond their relatively short lifespan. So what would have changed if IZ*ONE had continued? Maybe K-pop would have been dominated by one massive group for several more years. Maybe IVE and LE SSERAFIM would look completely different. Maybe some of the biggest moments of the fourth generation never happen the way we remember them. Or maybe IZ*ONE eventually reaches the same point anyway, and the members still go their separate ways. We simply don't know. But that's exactly why the question is so compelling. IZ*ONE didn't end because they had run out of potential. They ended because the clock said they had to. And when you look at everything their members accomplished afterward, it becomes almost impossible not to wonder what could have happened if they had simply been given more time. What if the group that was designed to be temporary had been allowed to become permanent? What if IZ*ONE didn't end? We might be looking at a completely different K-pop industry today.